Blindspot Season 2, Episode 3, Hero Fears Imminent Rot. Now, first off, I want to mention that I was stupid because I completely missed the fact that I skipped over this episode. Like, I saw Episode 4, like, the day after it actually premiered, and when I was sitting down, sitting in this chair, I was about to do the review, and I was like, oh, I don't remember the name, so I type in Season 2, Episode 3, and I'm like, that's not the description for the episode I just saw. And then I was like, uh-oh, I think I screwed something up here. So, somehow, in all the madness of last week, I managed to forget that I didn't see last week's episode. And that really sucks. Normally, in those situations, it's like, oh, maybe I reviewed it, and I just forgot to upload it, because I've certainly done that before. But looking at the description, I was like, no, that explains a lot, actually, because the fourth episode, kind of was noticing some stuff. I was like, this feels like a weird jump, but it kind of made sense at the same time, which is really funny. But yeah, completely missed this episode, so I apologize for this being a week late and coming out even after, the fourth episode. But I did enjoy this one. Going back to it, it did help make a lot more sense to some of the stuff I saw in episode 4. But I like this episode. It starts off, we have Jane who's been kidnapped, and basically the big thing is, there's some stuff that happened with Cade where he was seen a month ago, and if he's been torturing you for 3 straight months, why was he seen a month ago on a one-way trip out of the country? So that being the case, there's a bit of a test that needs to be handled by Jane and her people, and it's like, alright, her brother has to take her to deal with this guy who she actually used to be the mentor for, and he doesn't know that she's on this extra mission, and she doesn't even know who the heck he is. But they go on this mission. She's with her brother, and I love that they point this out, but she's like, hey, we just came here to talk with you, and he's like, oh yeah, you just want to talk, that's why you brought your maniac brother. And I love that. I was like, alright, that's awesome, because they take every chance they get to show he's freaking insane. As much as he might love his sister, that dude is nuts. Like, he's freaking insane. So, I thought that was great. It was just one little line, but I like that part just because it's like, every chance they get, they show us that he's crazy. It's not like, oh, I really care about my sister or this or that. Sometimes he's just crazy. He just does crazy stuff and just kills people, just because. He's just nuts. So they have this test, and naturally, Jane ends up failing. She's supposed to kill this guy who's technically innocent because all he did was freak out. He's like, I don't want to do this double life thing anymore. And he's too far into the game, and so they have to take him down. And she fails the mission, but her brother sticks up for her, and ultimately, that allows her to kind of get back in the good graces of her mother. Excuse me. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, he stood up for her, but they kind of go back to an earlier conversation about the rabbits, where Jane used to be kind of the first person to do it. Like, it would be the worst thing, but they were, taken and kind of trained as child soldiers. They did. The rabbit thing, I knew what he was going to say, because that's a thing that they do with dogs very often. I'd never actually heard about it with rabbits before, but they normally do it with dogs, and it's like you raise this dog and stuff, and then that's like the ultimate test to basically mentally destroy you. Like, if you can kill something you basically raised and helped keep alive for, a couple of months or so, if you can kill that, then there's nothing in you that'll stop you from killing some random dude, 50 miles away with a sniper rifle. You're not that rabbit. You're nobody. So I knew where they were going with that, and I like the way that they kind of played it when it got to the end. It's like, if you don't kind of prove that you're coming back into the fold, I'm not going to stand up for you again. I'm going to find your rabbit. And he specifically says, I'm going to kill him. So, of course, he means Weller. So I thought that was interesting. He's like, I'll kill your rabbit. I'll kill him. So, it's a threat, of course, that he makes towards Weller. And Jane has to really consider exactly what's going to happen with that. And then, the other side of this story, the actual mission itself was just nuts. People were just, like the way it starts off, where this woman she hops into a taxi and it's just like, oh, somebody left a bag, boom, she's dead, and then another explosion happens. And so the team has to really work through this really crazy case where it's like these bombings are going off, and they have to figure out, how do we find these people, how do we get to them in time before they they basically escalate, because each time it was just more and more people, and then it gets to the end, and of course I think the guy said it was like twice as big as the other bombs. So it was just escalating, and they're like, we have to find these people and figure out what's going to happen. And in between all this stuff, there are a bunch of little things actually going on. We had some pretty cool moments with, Reed kind of trying to figure out, like, how do I deal with what may or may not be the truth. He talks to the psychiatrist, and he's like, hey, I need a bit of info about repressed memories and stuff like that. And then we have Zapata, who, I mentioned this before, she's got like a sixth sense about him being in trouble or having some sort of issue, which I find hilarious. And she does try to talk to him in this episode, and he flips out on her a little. But I thought that was so funny. He's just like, he says something, and she's like, what's wrong with you? You don't seem normal. He's like, would you back off? And it's so funny watching that happen, because I swear she has a sixth sense when he's got a problem going on. So that I thought was really funny, because I was like, yep, that's exactly what I expected to happen. So that was funny, and it was also enjoyable. And then another little element that we had was actually Nas and Weller trying to really work as a team, and I thought that was cool. I was like, okay, they're supposed to make it work. We get to the end of the episode, and Nas kills the one guy, and Weller was super pissed. He was like, a few minutes and I would have had him in cuffs, but she didn't want to take that chance. So they had the same goal but different ideals as to how to deal with it. And he's in the situation, and she's just out out with the rest of the cops and stuff. So she takes that little 2-second window, which also was kind of badass, because if I remember right, this is like the first time she actually shot a gun in the show. So I was like, that was actually cool. I didn't know she actually had sniper skills, because even if you work in a certain sector of the government, even as a cop or whatever, that doesn't exactly mean you have skills with a sniper rifle. That is very specific to actually be a trained sniper. So that said a lot to me. I was like, okay, she's not just with them and on the team and stuff. She's trained in a very specific with a very specific type of weapon, as well as handguns, I'd have to assume. But I was like, okay, that actually says a lot to me, because I know that not everyone gets that type of training where you, especially when she said, I got a 2-second window, and she killed that dude. And I think she shot him in the heart. It wasn't even she shot him in the head. She shot him in the heart. So I think that would be even harder than okay, I know for a fact if I hit him anywhere up here, he's down for sure. But she shot him in the chest, and I would think that that's a much bigger margin for error. But at the same time, you kind of know where the heart is, what side to shoot on. But I was like, all right, I thought that was a cool moment for her, even though it led to a bit of an issue with them. And we see once again that she's listening to recordings and stuff, and they kind of hinted at that before, and it's like, okay, this seems like it could be her being the spy thing, and that at the same time I think is kind of the bait and switch deal, where it's the very obvious spy thing, where it could just be that she's listening to them just because. I'm sure it'll be found out at some point, but she doesn't get busted. And then there was another, it wasn't exactly subtle either, but when Patterson goes and they're supposed to have the little date thing, she goes to this dude and he's speaking in Arabic, and she's like, oh, are you speaking Arabic? And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, that is insanely suspicious. So I don't really know. I mean, it could be the bait and switch where they make it seem super obvious, oh, it's so obvious she can't be the spy, and he's being secretive and stuff, so he must be the spy. It's subtle, but still a little obvious. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Some people go the generic route where it's so obvious it can't be her. Sometimes it's so obvious that it can't be her, and this guy's being super secretive. But surprise, it is actually her who's being super obvious, and we've seen it the whole time. It just seems too obvious. So I don't know. I would love it if she was actually the spy, because like I said, I feel like it's the obvious route where it's oh, look how weird she's being. And it's oh, obviously it's going to turn out that she's doing that just to get closer to the team and know how they operate better, and she won't be the spy. And especially with this episode with him, it was such an easy thing too, where he could have just been like, yeah, I speak Arabic. You don't have to be a terrorist to speak Arabic. That's kind of how that scene played out to me, where he's like, you must be mistaken. I'm like, does he, it just seemed weird to me. I was like, he acts like only terrorists speak Arabic. I thought that was such a weird thing for him to act like it wasn't happening. So I don't know. I don't know. It's really hard to tell. That could be a totally different thing. He could just have family, and maybe I don't know why. Maybe he just wants to hide it. I really can't tell. It's so hard to tell with this show. You never know what is and what isn't really happening behind the scenes. But during that scene, I was like, oh, this adds to my suspicion to you, man. So I don't really know what the deal is. he and Patterson do end up kissing, so I don't know if that's good or bad, because I like the two of them together, especially because I'm a nerd and they're both nerds. So I was like, I think that's kind of awesome. But now I'm even more suspicious. I'm like, I don't know if that's good or not that she's okay, being with him and making that move. It's like, oh, I don't want her to be heartbroken again for someone else. Either he dies or it's like, he was with Sandstorm this whole time. So I don't really know what to expect there, but I am excited to see where it goes, of course, what they're going to do with Nas, and like I said, I assume she's going to be found out at some point. Someone's going to hear a recording, or something will happen, and she'll mean to take the earbuds out, and I don't know, the plug will come out, and it'll just be like super loud. I don't know, but I'm real nervous about what's going to happen there, but I certainly enjoyed this episode. Like I said, I'm so sorry that this is super late. I don't know how I managed to pull that off, or I just didn't even realize. And it's funny, I won't talk about it too much even though the episode's late, but it was funny watching the 4th episode. It still kind of fit because the sort of recap thing showed nothing from this episode, because it was like the actual case was just sort of filler stuff. So it was funny watching that. I was like, I felt like it skipped a little, but it did the recap of the last episode, so it was really funny how that started, and it still kind of picked up in the same place. And there was other stuff in that one as well, because they talk about Weller's, at the end at least, Weller kind of thinks a bit more about him having a child and how he kind of left that initially. So there's some stuff about that in the 4th episode where I was like, I feel like they skipped a little bit, and it seemed like it changed. I was like, yeah, next episode, things are moving fast. But I did enjoy this episode, like I said, of course. Even though I'm late with this, I still want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below, let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. And I want to know how far you guys think things would have to go for Weller to truly be in danger. I mean, I know that's a big thing where he was the main target. It was like, we send Jane in, we have, this info on him. We know that he would easily have this tied to Jane if we say that she's Taylor Shaw. And even though Jane, even at this point, realizes she's not Taylor Shaw, they know that she still has that personal connection to Weller. And they might not know how personal it did, end up getting at one point. But they know that he really is still her rabbit that she cares about. So I want to know how far you guys think would really have to go. Like, I think it would have to get to the point, to be totally honest, for that to actually happen, for Roman to actually do that. Hopefully, yeah, Roman to actually do that. I would think he just flat out has to know that his sister is double-crossing them. I don't think he'd actually do that over little missions, as much as he says that, in this episode. I feel like he's so protective of her that even if she kept screwing up, he'd find a way. He's the type of person, at least I feel this way, that he would find an excuse to be like, you know what, I'll give her one more chance. I'll give her one more chance. She kind of did this, even though she didn't do the main thing. I'll still give her another chance. So I don't think he'd ever actually go after Weller unless, it's like towards the end of the season and they find out, 100% like, hey, she's double-crossing us, which they kind of came up with a lot in this episode because they kept arguing about Jane not going on missions and stuff. And Nas had some great points where she's like, she can't stay away. It can't seem weird. It needs to look business as usual. And I was like, man, she has a great point about that. And I like that idea where it's like, even when Weller feels like she's not ready, she kind of has to go on these missions, because if she seems like she's not ready, that's going to seem suspicious if Sandstorm eventually has, a mole, or eventually decides to activate a mole, or if they're just watching, in the field, it has to seem normal. So I like that idea, but like I said, I personally don't think that Weller is truly in any danger until it's just like, well, she's double-crossing us, so let's just kill him. And he's useless to the plan now. Like, clearly we can't use him as leverage if she's already double-crossing us, so let's take him out. But that's my opinion. Want to know yours, and of course, want to know what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.